Hello, everyone. I hope you're feeling easy, cozy, and grounded as you receive this conversation. I want you to be almost a bit extra grounded for this conversation. I mean, you can see I'm holding a notebook. I don't want to miss any essential points for this one. This conversation is about a cage that we are aware of, and yet we are not leaving the cage. Maybe the cage for some of us, it's golden. For some, it might be 1 mile radius. For some, it might be 10 mile. For some, 100 mile. But the cage exists. This conversation may not be even for those who are not even aware about the cage. But I'm assuming many of you who listen to the podcast, you are aware of many shadows in your life. So I'm going with that good faith that you are aware of the cage. But now the funny thing is, if we are aware of the cage, why we do not leave it? What's causing us to stay in it? And what's the psyche, the psychology that keeps us in it? One thing I've noticed when you are in the cage, and that's a very interesting mirror. When you are in the cage, if a bird flies next to the cage, that bird, it should give you hope, motivation, inspiration. But most times, that bird who's flying around the cage, it annoys you. You get angry with the bird. You become the angry bird in the cage. Why do you do that? The bird becomes a reminder of a few things. Number one, reminder that you have wings. Number two, those wings have power, presence, they can fly. But the sad truth is, when we are not using a particular muscle for so long, we not only forget how to use it, we stop believing in the existence of it. It's true for everything. If you loved writing at one point, but if you haven't written a word for ages, you would forget that it existed in you. If at one point you danced, if at one point you loved so deeply, sincerely, and passionately, and if that muscle has not been activated for a while, you would forget the existence of that lover, that creator, that seeker in you. So my question, the first reflection for you, does this remind you of a relationship, a job, a career, a situation where you were only in it not because it fed your soul, but because it made others comfortable? Not because it was bringing you worthiness, but you were there because it was making you feel useful. And the only way you knew how to exist in containers was to be of some use. Earn love, earn respect by being useful. So you became a utility. And that became your entire reality. That became your default space to be in. This is the kind of cage we want to talk about today. Welcome to Leela Show podcast. I want to go deeper into this conversation. Take notes, send me questions on Instagram whenever you want, because this is the kind of conversation that's going to invoke a lot of triggering moments. And at one point, maybe you'll hate me. You'll maybe want to pause and delete or unfollow me because I'm that bird right now who's reminding you of your wings. And trust me, when those birds showed up for me, I also didn't like them in the beginning, but I knew this is uncomfortable healing that I need to sit with. Every healing is uncomfortable. But now my curiosity always goes into the why. Like, why do we not leave the cage, even if we are aware of it? The first word that comes to my mind is the unconscious loyalty that we all become part of. We are taught to be loyal, loyal to the country, loyal to family, loyal to partner, loyal to kids, loyal to our work, right? And there's a fine line between being aware and loyal versus being unconsciously loyal. And you will become unconsciously loyal to things that do not belong to you. You become unconsciously loyal to the fear, the script, the narratives, the belief systems that are just thrown at you. the more unconsciously loyal you are, the more numbness you create within. Because that's the requirement of being the unconsciously loyal being. You will numb the fire, the intensity, the passion, the inner child. You have to. I mean, you cannot be fully alive and yet be unconsciously loyal. You have to choose one. And most of us end up choosing the unconsciously loyal thing because it's unconscious. We are half asleep all the time. The second element that plays a part is the inner pleaser. You were trained, wired, raised to be agreeable, to be polite, to honor the systems where you're simply honoring blindly the cages, the voices. That inner pleaser knew how to bring calmness to a mother who's going through grief. That inner pleaser knew when your father walks in and he's angry, but you knew how to maintain and regulate his anger. That inner pleaser always knew what your partner is going through, and you take a back seat and become the caretaker, the parent of that partner. I cannot tell you how many times per week I get a message where it concludes in one statement. I have become a mother to my parent. Oh, sorry. Mother to my parent is also correct, by the way. But I have become a mother to my lover. I have become a father to my lover. And of course, I have become parent to my parents. I think in psychology, they call the word is parentified children, where they become parents to their parents. No one, trains you how to be a good parent. I know right now there are conversations, books, and the newer generation is reading, most of them, not all of them. In Little Bubble, there are, of course, a group who are reading, trying their best to understand what a parenting is all about. But I feel you can only become a good parent if you have been a good parent to your inner self. That's really how it has to work. A book can only help you take one step, but the other 99 comes from within. I can only go deeper with you to an extent that I've gone deeper with myself. The parentified children, the inner pleasers, they become therapists, caregivers, moms and dads to their lovers, to their parents, to their friends. These are the kind of people who always say, oh, my friends will always reach out to me when they need me. These are the people who always say, we don't have any sexual intimacy between us, but, we are there for each other. And when you ask them for how long that's been, it's pretty much all their life. There are people, cultures, who deeply and strongly believe that the intimacy, the passion, it needs to exist to an extent. Once you have children, your wife actually becomes your mother and your husband actually becomes your father. This is a very normal conversation in many cultures, including Asian culture where I come from. It's the normalized way. Now I understand what they're saying. You have to be with each other. We're not denying that. You have to be that safe space for each other. But we are talking about a safe container where your sensuality, creativity, spirituality, your authenticity expands. But the container it ends up becoming is like a stagnant lake. Like I'm seeing water bodies with no water right now. That's how it becomes stagnant. It invites mosquitoes. It invites diseases. I know of someone, let's name her Tara, a New York wealth management person working in Wall Street in New York, who became mother to her mother when her mother always felt emotionally abandoned by her husband, her father, Tara's father. So Tara became the crisis manager in her office, crisis manager at home. And of course, she does not miss any spiritual retreat, any creative or spiritual program, because she has to keep on fueling that crisis manager. Otherwise, she cannot manage the crisis. And as a child, she learned, if I do not manage the grief of my mother, if I do not manage the void that my father creates for my mother or that my father has in his life, who am I? And the more she creates, even that little smile she would get from her mom or dad, she would feel happy. She has memories of her as a child when she was only 5 years old and her mother would say, Dad had a bad day. make him happy, play with him. Now she's 5-year-old, but that was her training. The subconscious is so impressionable, so fertile at that age. She learned how to please the adults. This is exactly what she's doing, and she's being loved, rewarded for this. And this is a tragedy. When someone dies and you say great things about them, I feel there's a lot of harsh truth lives in those narratives and conversations. Imagine Tara passes away one day and everyone has, these things to say about her. She was always, the wise, the mature one, the mom to her mom. She sacrificed herself. These things are glorified in our society. And then we keep on multiplying this cycle. But Tara's life is a classic example of how she's been giving, over giving, and to an extent, she has nothing more to give. And the day she complains about it, that's the day she'll be called needy. She's demanding. She's being too much. She's got a good apartment in Manhattan. She's got a good job. And this is her duty to be there for parents. I mean, she's not even able to maintain a relationship. She got to work on herself. She's just asking for too much. She has high standards. The noise of society is so much for these parentified children, for these inner pleasers, that again, they feel there's no option but to please. Again, there's no option but to earn the love. So their identity is reduced to one thing. I will be loved when I'm useful. I'll be loved when I become a parent to my partner. I'll be loved when I'm always managing the crisis, and when it comes for my own grief, my own trauma, my own pain, I can numb it down. I can book a retreat. I can read a book. I can listen to a podcast. In most of my episodes, or even when you send me questions on Instagram, where do I begin Tantra? My usual answer is study Shiva and study Shakti, the goddess. Their base, their love, their containment is Tantra. And I'll give you context, and then we'll go deeper into it. One of the most profound scriptures of Tantra is Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, which roughly means the science of going beyond consciousness, going beyond mind. The story is, the Shakti had some curious questions. The goddess had some curious questions about life, death, consciousness, love, sexual energy, and Shiva started to guide her. And not as a teacher, but as a lover, as this cosmic channel. It's a deeply interesting, abstract, sensual, erotic, but deeply sacred and spiritual conversation that's happening. And this is what Tantra teaches us about when lovers become parents. Shiva. Think of Shiva as the mountain, and the Shakti, the goddess, as the ocean. In fact, there is a particular archetype for Shiva and Shakti for this kind of play. That's Bhairava and Bhairavi. Bhairava is the playful, ferocious form of Shiva. And Bhairavi is the most unapologetic, playful, sexual form of goddess. Now, they are constantly holding space for each other. The word I have for you here is the containment. Shiva creates container for Shakti. How many of you have seen that very popular photo of goddess Kali, standing with her feet on Shiva's chest, and Shiva is just lying down on the ground? That's the classic definition of the containment. So that moment of Bhairava on the ground and Shiva's and Shakti's feet on his chest, that's the perfect picture of the containment that the masculine must offer to the feminine, that the rooted masculine must offer to the wild feminine. The story is Kali or Bhairavi, she was angry, wild, destroying things, creating chaos. Now Shiva is known as the god, the teacher, the guru, the mystic. He could have given her the most powerful teachings, the most powerful, perfect meditation. He could have told Kali, do your conscious breathing, Do your green juice detox. Oh, your Jupiter, your Venus is acting up. Just do this ritual. He could have given her any ritual. But he decides to just surrender and says to her, I'm holding the space for you, for your wildness, for your chaos. I'm not going to guide you, advise you. I'm simply going to absorb you. You can dance on me. Now, this is a form of a masculine with ego stripped off. Because in the modern dating, relationships, marriages, ego is the front runner. And ego here is the identity, the memory, what your mother has told you about good marriage, what your father has shown you by example, what a good husband should be, what a good marriage looks like. And a lot of people worship and idolize these images, but fail to understand the core message of this image. When Shiva lays down on the ground, he's simply holding the container for the wild feminine to melt. And goddess Kali after that relaxes. And by the way, I'm interchanging the words. They all mean the same. Goddess Kali, Bhairavi, Shakti. One person, different forms. Because ultimately they are a symbolic, a metaphor, a gateway for us to understand the human psyche, the hero's journey. So Tantra really teaches us of how you could hold the container without leading with ego. This is what it looks like. And you may not have to lay down. Imagine you go to a cafe and your partner is a bit in a wild feminine and you lay down on the ground. You're like, put your feet on me. You don't have to go that deep. But you could do it energetically. Stop guiding her. Stop overanalyzing her. Stop reading your astrology and psychology book to describe her. Just give her presence. Give her the devotion. Allow her to express. It's the nature of feminine to express, to exhibit. It's called Shakti, the wild feminine, the nature. It's going to express. And the rooted masculine is the mountain. It's going to absorb. That's the nature of masculine, to absorb. Just sit, to just watch. This is the containment that's missing in the relationships today. Once you understand that you do not have to be the therapist. I've actually recently heard an interview of an artist, a very successful YouTube artist, who lost his parents and who went through a lot of grief. And when he was giving that interview, and he spoke about his partner, and he said, she has been my therapist for all these years. We have been together for 10 plus years. And the interviewer, the other person, asked him, have you considered seeking therapy? He said, no, she is my therapist. So there is so much wrong with this, but I know we say it with pride. She has become my therapist, or he is my therapist. He is the one who listens. They listen, but for how long they can listen? You do need a therapist. You do need a yoga class. You do need a studio dance class. You do need to go on a walk so that you do not dump everything on the partner, because they have stuff to dump too. Then what you're doing is just dumping stuff on each other until it reaches a point that you accept this uncomfortable reality that we have become parents to each other. And you know what happens out of this dynamic? A Coldplay concert kind of event happens. When I spoke about it on Instagram, oh my God. Of course, a lot of you loved it, and many of you, maybe not the ones who are watching or listening, many people absolutely hated it. I got messages that this is it, I'm unfollowing you. I know you make me uncomfortable, but this is beyond discomfort. This is crossing the boundary. I got many hateful messages. But this is what happens when you go home and you're seeing just your mother, you're just seeing your father. Of course, you want that spice, that aliveness somewhere else. And you will choose ugly way of doing it, because suppression will create ugliness. That's what suppression has been doing. The sexual suppression has created the porn industry, and no one will change it, because capitalism will keep on dehumanizing us. It will keep on creating products out of our numbness, out of our suppression. You have to understand no one is going to fix this until you wake up and fix it for yourself, or else you will keep on going on dates. This is why you'll keep on seeking aliveness in others, because when you reach home, It's a dead energy. And you'll always find ugly ways, my friend, because as I said, suppression creates ugliness. It will always do that. And it's up to you to change it. When you do not address these things, you become a chronic dater who's only dating to rescue people. And sit with this, because when you rescue others, you are not seeking intimacy or romance or passion. You are only seeking the rescueness because that makes you feel useful. Every date, every relationship becomes a thing for you to save. And if the other person actually tells you, you do not need to save me, I don't want to be saved, guess what? You run far, far away, because what's left for you if they don't want to be saved anymore? Right? The person who's constantly, chronically dating others to save, to rescue, to become useful, to become worthy in that space, you will avoid intimacy as much as you can, because you're not in it for intimacy. You actually have a deep fear of intimacy, but you're seeking some sort of usefulness, because guess what? We all want to feel useful. We all want to feel belong. We all want to feel seen and heard. So whatever you know in your little mind, how to be useful, how to be seen, you do that. You're not doing anything wrong. I'm not calling out that you're doing something horrible, but I'm simply calling out the unconsciousness of what we are doing. I have done that. I'm still learning. And this is why I'm not speaking from a place that I have figured this out. So I'm telling you, I'm carrying this notebook. I'm still taking notes. I'm still learning. I'm still making mistakes. I'm still fighting the demons that comes from my culture, comes from my own conditioning. And I'm simply telling you what I've learned so far. I hope that makes sense. And to wrap up, I'll give you a few steps or suggestions that you can follow. This transcendence, the healing that we are looking for, is not going to happen overnight, not going to happen with one session with me or a therapist or a coach or a retreat. It requires a hard rewiring. We are talking about cage, okay? And you have to break the cage. You may not get the key. I was reading this book. The author of the book it's about men, masculinity. And he talks to, men in that book. He said, you're locked in a house. And the key of your house is under your mom's pillow. She's not going to give it to you. She's sleeping on it all the time. So you really have to almost disappoint her when you take the key. Because either you do it when she's awake and she'll be unhappy and you face that, or when she's asleep and you quietly go and take the key and leave. In both the cases, she will be upset. The parents, I'm assuming in their best intention, and most of them really do in their best of intention, they want you to show up in a certain way for your relationships, simply because it keeps the circus going. Their mantra is, because we were stuck in a cage, so you should too. How dare you step out of this? You've got to be in that space. Coming back to the solution part, the key that you're looking for this particular cage, maybe it's under your mom's pillow, maybe your father is hiding it in his office, or maybe you just have to break the cage. But I recommend breaking it with awareness. I'm not the person who is going to tell you to do it in a violent way. I'm not the person who's going to tell you to rebel without awareness, because rebellious without awareness is still unconsciousness. First thing is to understand where in your body are you performing this love. Where in your body you feel that lack, that void, that keeps on making you to perform, that keeps on pushing you to perform. And number two, go deeper in your heart and ask yourself, what truth I'm hiding in the body? Who am I in this relationship? Who I will be beyond this relationship? Who am I if I drop the last name for a moment? What do I become? See the family name, the partner, your identity as a lover, husband, wife, whatever it is. These are the borrowed truths. They're very comfy, they're very cozy. They're not wrong. But they become wrong when you erase yourself completely. You remove and you dismantle your existence. So get deeper into this inquiry. When, why, how you replaced systematically the lover, the creative, the playful artist in you, and you become a caretaker, a caregiver. Go to the root of it. Why it happened, when it happened, how it happened. Because the man that we were talking, who's dating to rescue, he has a deeply painful, tragic story. When he was a baby, he was rescuing someone adult in his life. That really became his entire identity. Okay, when we speak about Tara working in Manhattan and still being the crisis manager, their stories are deeply painful. And it's not, the change doesn't happen overnight, and we should not be projecting our ambition on them. Give them space to do it in their own way. So if you know someone, give them space to do it their own way. Give yourself space to do it your way, but do it. Take baby steps. Of course, meditation, creating a vision of how life would be beyond the cage, creating almost a version of your identity. You could name it either, like for me, it could be CB 2.0. I do that with my clients, but I will label them as 2.0, 3.0, the newer versions. Like every year, the iPhone keeps on creating new version, right? The softwares keep on, coming out. Or you really come up with a different name. There is a name that helped me a lot. I'll share it with you so it gives you a deeper example. The name is Aghor. Aghor is one of the forms of Shiva. It comes from a Ghori sect of the Tantra wanderers. Aghoris are very innocent but deeply unapologetic, aloof from society. They always wear black. They never cut their hair. They'll sleep, eat wherever they want to. It's a fine line between looking like a homeless but also Tantra mystic. But they are very solid, powerful, intuitive humans. You will never, ever see them on social media or even in cities. They are just aloof, disconnected, but they do not care about the norms. So there was a lot of time when I would actually ask myself, what would a Ghori do? How would an Aghori show up for the meditation? It really kickstarted a deeper sadhana for me, a deeper meditation practice. Even now, like I have picked a name for my own inner journey, Aghor, which simply reminds me to show up unapologetically. Because meditation plays its part, but the other ways are equally important. Ultimately, the goal is that you arrive at a love that burns the old blueprint, and only that raw, real, fresh love out of you will burn the blueprints that have suffocated you, that have systematically built the cage for you. That's all for now. Those who want to go deeper, of course, continue listening to the podcast. Substack is there. Feel free to join the Leela community, the Cosmic Circle community. The link is on my website, cbmeditates.com. Cosmic downloads are for those who are willing to go extra deeper in the space. And of course, then there's one-on-one mentorship. But I always encourage people to start with something they can, playfully go deeper into. So Substack, podcast, or Cosmic Circle and Cosmic Download. That's all for now. Do tell me what you think of the videos, the newer version of the CB 3.0 showing up for you. Thank you guys for listening.